Good morning, New Zealand. Well, we weren't here on Monday because it was King's birthday, and you might have noticed that Simon wasn't here yesterday for Solid Ground. He is currently in Japan, so we look forward to his report when he returns at the end of the week. Anyway, middle of the week, Wednesday, this is Daybreak. All right, let's check out the news that you need to be aware of. Some of it may be reported by the media and we'll correct anything in it, and maybe some that you haven't heard from the media, which is kind of the ones that we're interested in, the ones that aren't being reported. Obviously, kind of like the big story from yesterday was actually the latest poll. Now, if you believed the media, or the media party, as I call them, because they're like a political party, if you believe the media party, the government, the whole of New Zealand hated the budget. They hate pay equity and what the government is proposing around that. And in fact, the government would be turfed out if there was an election. Well, next minute, there was a latest poll. Let me just show you the results. And actually what it showed is that both major parties have decreased, especially Labour, interestingly, after the budget, which is kind of interesting that an opposition party would go down after the budget. You'd think they'd get a bit of a kick because people didn't like the budget. But look at the big riser there on the right. New Zealand First has gone up to 8%. That's one of its biggest ones. And the Green Party are obviously benefiting from the fact that people aren't happy with Chris Hipkins and Labour, and so they're going to the Greens. I mean, still quite amazing that people would consider the Greens. But even then, Chloe only gets 5% of the vote. Preferred Prime Minister Christopher Luxon will still be happy with his performance. So that's the latest polling, but they asked about the budget, and interestingly enough, 39% satisfied, slightly more dissatisfied, but the fact of the matter is, if you believed all the hype in the media narrative, people hated the budget. And I'm not sure budgets should be actually liked when you're tightening the belt. Nobody in my family likes it when I say, we need to spend less. And so I think this is probably a pretty good result. Now, in terms of the pay equity, they also asked about those. And look, it's going along similar. If you look at the numbers for this and the numbers for the budget, similar figures. So 39% support what's being proposed around pay equity. And I mean, is that support all the men and opposes all the women? No, well, it's not. And that's the interesting aspect of it. So anyway, I think the government may be breathing a sigh of relief. And as I said, if you believe the media narrative, everybody hates the pay equity scheme. In fact, I saw Chloe Shawbrick saying that on TV even after this poll was released. So it kind of makes a whole mockery of that. And same with the budget as well. One other thing I did notice is that the government, so there's a proposed bill to get rid of AI-generated deepfake images. This is where you take an image of a person and through AI, you can create basically a pornographic image of the person using AI. And ACT MP Laura McClure wants to make that illegal. Now, she's introduced a private members bill, and the government has said, actually, yes, we might be interested in actually following up on that. So that's a good development. Let me just get my papers around the right way. One sad story I saw over the weekend was this one, and it was the story of a Queensland girl, Mila Davis. She died of aggressive bone cancer when she was just 13. She benefited from a palliative care organisation called Rei Kutuku, based in Christchurch. And during the past 2.5 years, the privately funded charity has looked after 90 children at the end of their lives, supported 40 bereaved siblings and their families, but the funding is about to run out. Rei Kutuku estimates that 8 million would be enough to establish a 4-hub nationwide 24/7 specialist service for dying children. 8 million. But the funding's not there. The funding is there for euthanasia, fully funded, but it's not there for palliative care for children. 8 million. I mean, why don't we divert money from propping up the media? I mean, we give 66 million, actually that's going to decrease, but we have been giving 66 million to Radio New Zealand. Let's take 8 million out of that and provide some palliative care for terminally ill children. That's the kind of priorities that we need to make. One book, I'm not sure if you're going to be getting it, but is this book. It's been getting some interesting reviews, actually. I saw the Guardian review, which I tweeted about over the weekend. It was a SOP piece that Ardern is now missed by progressives at home and abroad. She modelled a different way of doing politics. Jacinda mania. She offered a different vision of national identity for New Zealand, straightforward, compassionate, diverse, globally desirable. And that she had a hunky feminist boyfriend and was pregnant when she became PM, and she was going to bring kindness back. Well, kindness back, but just not for the unborn child. Interestingly, there's a review done in the Telegraph, and let me just read the first paragraph. It says, the heading is, Jacinda Ardern's virtue signalling memoir is like one long therapy session. I'm not sure if that's for the reader or the author. But it says, don't read this book. You won't anyway. It's by Jacinda Ardern. But if I tell you that it's a memoir dedicated to the criers, worriers, and the huggers, you'll have an idea of the nightmare you've dodged. A different kind of power reads like a 350-page transcript of a therapy session. My whole short life, the author writes, I had grappled with the idea that I was never quite good enough. So different reviews of the book. I won't ask you if you've read it because I'm sure you'll tell me. But anyway, you might see that book on the shelf at the local bookshop. Speaking of legacies, here's another legacy. The abortion pill inventor died over the weekend, aged 98. This guy invented the abortion pill RU486. Developed in 1982, they say provided a safer, cheaper abortion. Safer abortion, that's an oxymoron. His wife said his work was driven by commitment to science progress, women's freedom, and improving lives. Well, just not the lives of the unborn child or the woman who suffer later in life from having had the abortion. French President Emmanuel Macron recognised Bailou as a beacon of courage. And just to show you how tone deaf the President of the United States could have been if Kamala Harris was voted in, this is what she tweeted on the death of this guy. She said that he changed the lives of so many women around the world. Interestingly, she doesn't say whether he changed them for good or for bad. So we'll just insert, he ruined the lives of so many women around the world and of unborn women as well. And then down the bottom, she says, I will forever honour their work together. This is the mother of the guy, of the doctor as well, which continues to help save lives to this day. Oh yeah, Kamala. The abortion pill helps save lives. You just can't get more stupider than that. And the United States and the world dodged a bullet when Trump defeated Harris, didn't they? All right, knock me down with a feather. The news has come out that apparently that boxer that we all knew was a dude at the Olympics is a dude. And sex test results have debunked the IOC's stance. Emain Khalif's sex test results from the 2023 World Championships have been published for the first time, with the medical report appearing to indicate that the boxer is biologically male. And interestingly, this has just come out just at the same time as World Boxing has said that there will be mandatory sex testing for all boxers in the competition, adding that the Paris Olympics gold medalist Emain Khalif will not be allowed to compete until, well, Radio New Zealand says until she undergoes a test. Will be biologically correct and say until he undergoes a test. The global body says it aims to deliver a competitive level playing field for men and women. Hurrah for that. Here was another one from Daily Wire. We were right. Leaked medical report says boxer who beat up woman at Olympics is a man. Interesting one from Thailand. Thailand has decriminalised cannabis in 2022, 2 years after we could have, but we didn't, thankfully. Thailand did so, but it had this regulation of law and, all these safeguards, same as we were promised. Next minute, in Thailand, tens of thousands of dispensaries and retailers selling cannabis. And 3 years later, Thailand has realised it's made a big dopey mistake and it's planning to tighten the control of marijuana use, ensuring cannabis is only used for medicinal use. Well, there's another issue as well. The government had hoped that, this is a Thailand government, had hoped that decriminalising cannabis would turn it into a cash crop for Thailand with all the taxes collected. Remember that argument that we were told by the Drug Foundation and Andrew Little and Chloe Shawbrick? But what happened in Thailand? They have seen a rise in recreational use, the black market, and a saturated market. Wow, who would have ever thought of that? Now, lots of media coverage around Harvard and how nasty Trump is for threatening some of the funding, state funding of Harvard. The fact of the matter is that it's for good reason. And there's a very good article in the Heritage Foundation entitled, "All the President Wants is for the University to Obey the Law." It's by Mike Gonzalez from the Heritage Foundation. And he says, the administration, this is what the media will not tell you about Harvard. They'll give all the sob stories about international students not being able to go to Harvard. I would just say find a better university, find a Christian university. That would be a start. But the administration, for example, asked that Harvard make meaningful governance reform. It requested that it institute merit-based hiring, ceasing all preference based on race, colour, religion, sex or national origin. So in other words, stop being woke and DEI. In other words, they asked Harvard to abide by the law. They also said that the university had to reform international admissions so as to exclude students hostile to the American values and institutions, i.e. anti-Semitics. Again, common sense, the article says, why would a university admit foreign students who hate Americans and their values? And they also want to audit programs and departments that most fuel anti-Semitic harassment, which has been a major problem for Harvard. But I think this sentence sums it up. This woke mind virus started at our universities and at the highest level. American taxpayers keep sending money to universities because they thought they were centres where culture would be transmitted to future generations. Instead, cultural Marxists use them as venues to kill the culture. So that's the side of the Harvard debate that you will never hear in the media party, and it needs to be put into context. So it's well worth reading a little bit more. Heritage Foundation has some good articles. Interesting poll out of the US over the weekend. Support for gay marriage, and has plummeted. It's plummeted. I mean, this heading says it's amongst Republicans, but it's actually, let me show you the overall. The overall is that dotted line in the middle, and you'll see that support has actually dropped. The blue line, let me just enlarge that. The blue line is Democrats. The red line is Republicans. Support for same-sex marriage is down to 40% for Republicans. I was interested just to look at the church breakdown as well. Let me enlarge this for you. Those who attend weekly have the lowest support for same-sex marriage, and obviously the biggest support for same-sex marriage is those who seldom or never attend services. I mean, if you're attending church weekly, I would assume that actually you wouldn't support same-sex marriage. So maybe they're going to the woke churches that don't read out of scripture. I don't know. Anyway, one interesting trend though, support for same-sex marriage. Maybe it's the Trump effect that people are allowed to actually have their opinion now. Interesting. Only 200 schools are doing Pride Week this week in schools. Now, here's the interesting thing. Last year, it was 250 schools. The year before, it was 300. The number of schools that are doing Pride Week in schools is dropping every year. And if only 200 schools are doing it, that represents 8% of all schools. So 92% of all schools don't want to indoctrinate your kids. They want to educate your kids. And we should all be encouraged by that. Still raises questions about those 200 schools that are doing it. So this week is Pride Week. This week is also Samoan Language Week, Talofa Lava. And so I guess you've got the opportunity of learning these words, Talofa Lava, Whawhatai. So learning, positive Samoan words in school, or you could learn words like asexual, bisexual, cisgender, non-binary, pansexual, transsexual, cisnormativity, demi-boy, demi-girl, drag, biphobia, bisexual, demisexual, gay. Oh, and that there's 112 genders and 200 plus sexualities. So there's your choice, Samoan Language Week, or indoctrinate your kids with radical gender and sexuality ideas. Tough choice. Okay, we'll go for the Samoan language one. And just finally, gosh, that time's gone quick. Just finally, Helen Clark was brought back onto TV by Stuff News. It's not really a news program anymore. It's just a documentary pushing a narrative. But she was asked about that Musk doing the Nazi salute. There's nothing better when the left can use the words Nazi and genocide and far right, even populist far right. I mean, populist just means democratically they're the most popular party. But when you add populist to right, they think it's a negative. But anyway, this is what she had to say with a bit of work from me.
In your view, did Elon Musk do a Nazi salute?
Well, it looked like it, and what's the old saying? If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck.
That looks like a Nazi salute.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
There's a lot that's going on in the world today that makes one think it might have felt like this in the 1930s.
No.
We've seen the surge of the populist authoritarian right, if you like, winning a lot of seats in parliaments in Europe, for example. So this is a concern. It's a bit chilling. It brings back memories of a genocide in the lead up to and during World War II.
Oh, well, next minute, everybody started finding this photo of Helen Clark from when she lost the election in 2008. That looks like a Nazi salute. And if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck, apparently. This language around, populist, what was it? Authoritarian right. All these negative buzzwords. I tell you what, just ignore them. It's a form of jamming. Jamming is where you throw a negative label on something you don't like. You can't argue against it, so you throw a negative label on it. Ignore jamming because it's just designed to shut you up. Don't let them. And someone who's not going to shut up, I tell you what, she's got an opinion, and that's why I've asked her to be a guest panelist tomorrow night, is Roe Edge. She is going to be on Political Playback, and that's because Simon is on another junket. I always say to him, what's your next junket, Simon? No, he is doing important stuff in Japan, and he will be back for Political Playback. So, Roe Edge from Save Sports Australasia, who's a great proponent and great ally, great commentator. You will really enjoy her. So watch her tomorrow night. We'll be discussing some of these political elements. I might ask her if she's read Jacinda Ardern's book just to see her blood pressure go up. Anyway, that's all we've got time for. Have I got time just to quickly check the comments? Catherine says, I bet plenty of women regret their decision. This is around the abortion issue and live with guilt for the rest of their lives, thinking, what if? That's true. Yolanda, regarding the same-sex marriage, says those numbers are very encouraging. Jackie says it's still cold in Ratahi. I think it's always cold in Ratahi, isn't it, Jackie? Every time I went there. Rosie says that's definitely a Nazi salute. Susan says, sheesh, this lady. Speaking of ducks. Ed says, coming from one of the biggest Marxists in New Zealand, Ardern's mentor. Yes, it was an interesting weekend. Helen Clark and Jacinda Ardern. I mean, next they'll be rolling out John Key and Jim Bolger and past prominent. I always think, actually I wasn't going to talk about this, but I always think that if once you're Prime Minister, and you've been voted out. It's time to just go and do other work and not be brought back because people have voted you out. And that's kind of the shutting of a door, end of a season, time to move on. So anyway, somebody just slammed the door over there. Does that mean that's the end of my season? Anyway, anyway, we're out of time. So have a great week. Thanks for watching. Simon won't be here tomorrow morning because he's in Japan eating sushi and enjoying all the delicacies and beautiful food. I told him to bring back some sushi, although I'm not sure it'll actually last the flight with that compact air. And I'll be back on Friday morning, but tomorrow night, watch out for Political Panel with Roe Edge as my guest. Anyway, until then, you have a great day.